my pocket. And ooh, I'm a brother.
Thank you, brother.
I know I'm a brother.
Where were you out there doing those protests and riots?
It's all on TV.
You call yourself a revolutionary, not standing strong?
Nope, it's work for me.
I love this
And I
song.
know that I am the man, and that's why you're with me.
You're kind of muddy and orange.
You know what, Yair? You just
Too late.
You talk real proper.
Yep.
Got all that education.
You know.
And you even into politics.
Oh, what's good?
I bet you don't even go to church.
What for?
And you know what else? You got real big feet.
My feet? Woman, you goofy. Ooh, I'm a brother.
You think you a brother?
I know I'm a brother. Skin's brown, hair's black, teeth is white. That's why you love my smile. I know you do. You really like it.
You think so?
And ooh, I am the man on this side of town.
At the
Ladies
end,
and
love it.
gentlemen, welcome to 99 The Beat and our new show called The Know. I am your host, Yair L, and your hostess, Nadia Mazzado. Welcome to our little world. Get ready.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Yair L, the disagreeable.
And I am Navia, also the disagreeable.
Yes, it seems now that I have been formally inducted into being on the disagreeable side, and it's because of that that we now brandish this color in which is actually my favorite, red. We wear red.
Red, the power color. There you go.
Yes, stimulates brain activity and energy and all this other interesting stuff when you wear the color red.
All right, that is true. Today is kind of heartbreaking in some of the things that we're going to be talking about because it greatly affects our community. It greatly affects a lot of the things that we try to keep hidden that we're hoping, will never manifest itself. And it just really goes to show you and I and others that we have a long way to go before really establishing what it is to be human. Communities suffer because it seems like, everything is kind of fast paced right now. We're not paying attention anymore to the little things. We're not paying attention to our loved ones. We're not paying attention to subtle signs of things that may be going wrong. We have this demeanor about us that we put out into the world, which makes people think that we're all okay when sometimes we're not. And even those who aren't really okay, we just don't have time to cater to them anymore. It goes back to dealing what we said earlier about has the world become apathetic. It's a very, very scary place to be. And what prompted this actual broadcast was a news story that was shared with us and was shared all over social media. And it was concerning a mother in Mecklenburg County in Charlotte, North Carolina, who had these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful children. Did a lot of videos with her children, promoting them, their talent. She sang, and on the outside, everybody just thought that this was a very, very happy family. As a matter of fact, when after the crime was committed that we'll read in a minute, nobody saw it coming. None of the neighbors would have suspected it. And, it's heartbreaking because, number one, you hate to see children have to suffer anyway.
That's right.
But it goes back into a lot of the things that we talk about and what we bring forward and a lot of the issues that we have in the Black community and in other communities as well, and how hard it is really to be a single parent. We promote it, but it really does make a difference when you have help.
Agreed.
When somebody's around you to help you relieve stress, that can help you maintain and balance certain situations that can come for you. We pride ourselves in being strong Black women, but there's a side of that is not being shown. And we're going to talk about that today.
Okay. And moving forward, we're going to go ahead and just read into that because it is a very unfortunate situation, and I think it also plays into how much the ego also plays into the situation of, you know, being a single black parent. I'm not just going to say a single black mom, but, you know, maybe a single black dad as well, and putting differences aside, you know, for the benefits of the children. And ultimately, it's like what we had discussed in previous broadcasts, and it's the fact that no one suffers more than the children.
Right.
And especially in issues of this, you know, we have an instance in which 2 children lost their lives very early. And we didn't know exactly what the reasoning was for that and how it came to. But I'm going to move on and kind of segue into the article. And it comes from Charlotte Mecklenburg Police. And they confirmed that a mother of 2 killed her children and then committed suicide by jumping off a bridge on Saturday night. It happened on the 2100 block of Sebastiani Drive in Northwest Charlotte. When the officer forced their way into the house, they found a 7-year-old Isaiah Miller and 3-year-old Ayla Miller. The children were taken to the hospital where they later died. Detectives believe that their mother, 34-year-old Christina Treadway, assaulted them before jumping to her death off of Old Gun Branch Road on the bridge, segueing over I-485. Police were working on trying to figure out Treadway's motives. Quote, that's the core of this investigation. What would cause somebody to obviously be so despondent to take their own life and then take the lives of their children? An investigator of the CMPD said. That's going to be a key component in the investigation, and we're nowhere near being able to being able to speak on that. Treadway's neighbor, Desiree Jant, says she was still in shock Sunday after finding out about the murder-suicide. As a mother, it's hard, John said. It was really hard. I remember seeing the little girl in her pigtails just kind of bouncing around before running around, and her big brother on her bike. John described the family from the neighbor's perspective as typical and a loving family. You know, on the outside looking in, it's nothing I could ever say that anything was wrong, she said. Police say nobody else was inside the home where the children were found. The homicides are the Queen City's 2nd and 3rd of 2018. And of course, it says any information on this incident is asked to call the Crime Stoppers at 704-334-1600. And this comes from WFMY News 2 in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay, and we saw some videos on it, and nice neighborhood. Looks like middle class, possibly even upper middle class. Maybe mixed, in the areas, suburban type. Swings outside, and the kids look like they had a really happy life. And even on her videos when she's broadcasting them, they looked very comfortable,
right?
And they look to be ideal. You don't see in them the struggle that many of us may have had growing up in more poor areas. You don't see that type of struggle that's going on with those children. So you have to then ask yourself, we pride ourselves in saying, hey, let's get out of the hood. Let's go here. Let's go there. Let's make a change. But you see that these things still affect you no matter where you are.
Correct.
And as a matter of fact, because of this story, I decided to do some research and statistics. If you don't mind pulling that back up, please.
Sure.
And come to figure out that this is not very uncommon as we thought it was. And there was an article that was posted on CNN, okay? And it says, let's scroll this up, please. Move it up to the top, please.
All right.
I'm sorry, I got short arm problems. Okay. All right. If you don't mind scrolling with me, since you're longer. Okay. So this was an article by Doug Crisis, okay, and off of CNN. And it says, it's the most unfathomable of crimes, a parent killing their own child. They call this, what is it, filicide? Pedicide. Okay. It grabs headlines when it happens, like this week in Georgia, where a mom is accused of stabbing 4 of her children to death. The reality is filicides happen with depressing regularity in the U.S., and mothers are almost as likely to be the killers as fathers. Scroll down, please. 500 is the average number of kids killed by their parents every year. 500. Okay? So, I mean, I know you're considering how many people is on the earth, but that's still a lot of freaking kids, you know, that are just dying by the hands of the people that swore to love and protect them and take care of them. Okay, it says, of course, we're shocked whenever we hear about a parent taking the life of their own children. Think Andrea Yates or Susan Smith. But what's even more shocking and sad is this type of crime happens a lot. A study in the Journal of Forensic Science International looked at 3 decades worth of filicide cases between 1976 and 2007 and found they occurred about 500 times a year in the United States. Now, close to 72% filicide victims are 6 years old or younger. Okay. Almost 72% of those killed by their own parents were 6 years old or younger, and 1/3 of the victims were just babies under 1 year of age. But more than 13% of the victims were adults, specifically people in ages running from 18 to 40 years old. So the threat of filicide doesn't go away when people get old enough to move out on their own. Okay. In filicide cases, moms are just as likely to be the killers as dads. As a matter of fact, they have 57.4% of filicide cases being implemented by the fathers, and 42.6% are the actual mothers. And that's not too far off from each other. Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead. Cheryl Myers, co-author several books on the subject, said it's probable that a mother kills a child somewhere in the U.S. once every 3 days. Once every 3 days. 90% of the victims were the killer's biological children. So we're not even talking about stepkids and foster kids and all of that. We're talking about biological children. Only 10% of the victims were killed by their step-parents. That means that 90% of the victims were the biological sons or daughters of the killers. And sons, 52% were more likely to be killed than daughters at 38%. That's interesting enough. We should hit on that again. Okay, parents used what the study called personal weapons to beat, choke, or drown victims in the majority of cases involving underage kids. If the victims were adults, then the parents used guns in 72% of such killings. So they decided to do an investigative study to figure out some of the reasons why these was happening with their children, and these parents were killing these children. And Dr. Timothy Mariano, the study leads author, offered up 3 theories as to why the parents could possibly want to do this to these children. One is that the parents are often mentally ill. They usually have higher levels of testosterone, and the offspring that they kill may be considered unwanted.
Interesting.
Forensic psychiatrist Philip J. Resnick, pioneering the study of filicide research, identified 5 major reasons. 1, altruism. The parent kills the child because he or she may perceive it to be in the child's best interest. It may be reality-based. The child suffers from terminal illness, or proceed the suicide of the parents, as the parents feels it would be unfair to leave the child behind to face the cruel world. I found that particularly interesting because I do know of some personal cases where parents were suffering with a child that they felt would never be able to adapt to society based off some type of disability, some type of mental illness, and they thought, that it may have been in the child's best interest to not even be here. They consider that, as a sympathy killing, or if the child has, some type of terminal illness, which is causing them pain all the time, rendering the parent that's trying to take care of them is feeling helpless.
Right.
they have often contemplating, what would life be like, or is this life deserving of a child? Like in the cases of Siamese twins,
Right.
There's often times where mothers will have children that are born Siamese twins, and they're sharing an organ, and the parents may be thinking that this is not the life that they need to live. They're going to be ridiculed, but it just so happens that if you separate the two, one of them will die because they're sharing an organ. And there are some parents that will take that sacrifice or that risk. So I understand, some instances where they may be contemplating it, but, I don't know if I personally could bring myself to do that,
Me neither.
But that is what some of the things that they were discussing. All right. The second one is acute psychosis, okay? The parent kills the child based on ideas that are inconsistent with reality. For example, the parent believes the child has been possessed by the devil. Now, we read about that case, a couple of years back, where that mother had killed her oldest son and oldest daughter and stuffed them in the freezer because the youngest boy had accused both of the siblings of molesting him.
You're right.
Okay, and when they went to court over the situation, the mother was saying that the two oldest one were actually evil. That the things that they did to the youngest child could only be done by monsters and the devil, and that she knew something was wrong with her children, the two oldest that she actually killed, because of the lack of apathy. The lack of empathy towards what they were doing to that little boy. And she described some very horrific stuff.
Yeah.
Now, the sexual abuse that that she described the older sister and the brother was doing to this baby, you would have to wonder where they even learned it.
Where they got it from, right? And what were they exposed to? How did this happen? If the family was quote unquote normal,
right? I mean, she was describing it in pornographic terms, of what they were doing and what they knew how to do to this child, and the best method that she thought of saving her youngest baby was to kill the other two. So, okay, that's just an example of that. There has been other cases where, parents thought their children was just evil, born possessed. Maybe they were displaying some type of disagreeable behavior,
right.
Who knows? Maybe they're just being children. I mean, when you really think about it, all a child knows how to do is cry. That's their form of communication. They're hungry, cry. Sleepy, cry. Cold, cry.
Thirsty,
hot, cry. Cry.
But most parents, plural, are able to kind of tune into that and see what those cries mean, because it becomes quite interesting how the parent-child relationship grows. You kind of know that a certain cry means okay, they need their diaper changed. High pitched, they're hungry. Low pitched, they're tired. But then that, again, it correlates with both parents being involved, or if one parent is really in tune with that child, or are they tired from all the ills and things that have befallen them, and they just perceive it as crying only.
Yeah, just because it is hard raising children. It's not an easy task. Okay, the third one is the unwanted child. The parent kills the child that he or she regards as a hindrance. This goes hand in hand with postpartum depression. And we experience that particular one more with women than we do with males. And this is because there are women, who wants to keep sole possession of the child when they are separated or go their separate ways, and she wants to raise the children by herself. Now, a lot of times women will do that because they don't know how to stand and face a decision otherwise. You're kind of raised that a mother takes care of her own. Right. Okay. So a woman that might not even be in the best financial situation or be as stable as the father still may want to take possession of the children out of fear that she's abandoning her kids, even if she knows that's the right thing to do. And it doesn't even necessarily mean that she wants to have these children. you know. But she will take them to keep you from having them because she's afraid of what people might think about her if she says, I don't want these kids, you know. So, and then you have the ones that may have had the children, you know, in an effort to keep the relationship strong, you know, figuring, hey, he doesn't love me, but right now, or he's showing out right now, but once I give him these children, then we're likely going to be together.
We're going to be together, and we'll be one happy family, and with a white picket fence and a dog and all this other good stuff, but
it doesn't work out. And when the reality hits that there's no relief for you, okay? And what I mean by relief is now you're working, now you're taking care of the child. You know, you're trying to play all of these roles. You have no rest. You have no time to yourself anymore. You can't do what your friends are doing. You can't go to places that you want to go. You can't, you know, there's nobody around, no babysitters, you know, to help you. Unfortunately, children, as being children, are selfish, you know, but they don't know that they're being selfish. I mean, they're just trying, they're not thinking about mom is tired. You know, they're not thinking about mom or dad just came home from work. Everything when you're a child is about me.
Right.
You don't learn certain things like that. I'm hungry. I'm tired. You know, so you have to cater and have the ability to cater to that and be understanding that that's their reality right now. It's not about you at this moment. And a lot of people can't handle it. They can't handle it. They may have wanted the child in the effort to keep the family, and now that the reality is that there is no family, I'm stuck with it, you know, and I don't really want to be a mother, or I don't know how to be a mother, or I don't want to be a full-time mother,
right?
You know, so those are one of the reasons why some of them end up breaking down and possibly killing their children. Okay, you have the accidental death syndrome, which is, you know, the child's death is an unintentional outcome of parental abuse, physical abuse. Now, black mothers.
Oh boy, here we go.
Oh my God, black mothers. And even myself, you know, we have what I call these mommyisms. You know, the threats that we put out there are very extreme and sometimes hilarious. I mean, I remember even growing up, you know, and I was a terror at times, you know. Disagreeable has always been my nature, you know. So my grandmother used to say things to me like, I'm going to knock the devil out of you. I'm going to beat the devil out of you. You hear things like, I'm going to throw you through.
I'm going to throw you through the fucking wall.
I mean, go ahead.
Was it? You know, I brought you in this world. I'm gonna take you out.
I put my foot so far up your tail, you be shoelaces. I used to tell my son that I would pound him until he resembled raw hamburger meat. I will turn your head into a canoe. You know, these are certain things that we do out of frustration. You know, and I know why I did it. Now, I can't speak for everyone else, but the more extreme I would make the threat, the more amusing I would find it later that, hey, you know, that was a good one. And it kind of broke the anger. But I also do remember getting to that point, you know, when I was working third shift, you know, and then I picked up some classes and I would come home exhausted, you know, and my son would just be bothersome. You know, he needed everything all the time. And I remember, you know, looking at him just screaming at the top of his lungs and saying, I could end this right now. I tossed this little nigga off the balcony. I remember thinking that. And then I remember thinking, well, I don't. I remember thinking, well, I only live about one story up, so if I actually threw him off the balcony, chances are he's going to survive. And if he survives, he's going to keep crying, and it'll kind of be counterproductive. So we're not going to do that.
Hey, check this out. we have some folks that are actually chiming in. All right. Greetings. Hello, family. Hello, Harper, Tiffany,
Hi.
Emma, Nikki. Greetings to you all. Harper says hi. Tiffany says hello.
Hi, Tiffany. Harper.
Emma says you have to research who you have babies with, which is the absolute truth.
Emma, we got you on that.
You are correct. You are correct on that one. And Nikki was like, that's 100%. We say those things now,
right?
You know, and it's sad, but it's true. Yeah. You know, we have to admit to those things. But indeed, you do have to research who you have babies with. But in looking at that too, time also changes you. Yeah. So you could be one of the most sociable, one of the most peaceful people, one of the most kind individuals. You could be the best parent to begin with, but life happens, and if the other parent or if the spouse is not attentive to what's going on and they're not able to counter what is happening to you, then unfortunately situations like this can take place. Okay. Not saying it will happen or it won't happen, but there's always a potential that things like this can happen, because life has a way of changing people either for the best or for the worst. And unfortunately, what we're just uncovering today and talking about today is the worst of us. Yeah,
we're going to get into that. Absolutely. So even with saying those things, you know, and thinking those things, many of us have said, I have said that and made those type of threats, but never ever thought of actually acting out on it. But sometimes people who, especially passive aggressive people, and what we mean by passive aggressive, we mean people that bottle up emotions a lot, try not to get angry, just hold it in until one day it becomes explosive. And you don't know what kind of day, you know, you may have. And you might come home and your kid is being a jerk, you know. And these parents might have gotten to a point where they snapped, okay? They did not know how to balance their lives. That energy is now taken out on their children. They're beating their children uncontrollably, but it was never intentional for them to die.
Right.
Okay, so now they have a double negative karmatic effect to have to deal with the rest of their life. Number one, you're going to go to jail, you know, for doing that. And number two, you're going to have to live with killing your child. You know,
that is pure hell in itself.
That's got to be hell, you know, in itself. But, you know, this is one of the purposes of this show, is we're going to start dealing with your shadow self. Okay. But we're going to pull some of this stuff out. Could you please turn back so I can see the last one? Okay. All right. The last one out of the 5 that causes the filicide is spousal revenge. Okay. The parent kills the child in an effort to exact revenge on the other parent.
And we hear that a lot. Now that seems to be the majority of what we see from the statistics that you've read. And quite frankly, I think, you know, this is not a statistic fact, but I think that's where a lot of us men have an issue, in which we find it more logical to stay away from our children than to risk them being subjected to death because of spousal revenge.
Okay. Now, what he just said is a very, very deep and complex thought. Okay. That a lot of people are not going to be able to grasp that, what he just said. So I want you, beloved, to explain and elaborate on what you said so the audience can get it.
Okay. All right. Well, it's like this, you know, it goes back to what our sister Emma was saying. You know, you have to research who you have babies with, but then again, life does change people. There comes a point in time where somebody changes, and you realize that you might not have wanted to be in that relationship for forever because of an instance. And then you see this individual change, you know, from a black man's perspective. and then you two unfortunately have children together, but you know that you're the best person for the safety of the children. However, an instance arises where during a breakup or a divorce, pain is inflicted upon the children. And the first instance is probably one in which you're alienated as a father. And then the second instance when you try to show interest in having custody to help or to kind of offset any stresses that the mother might be bringing upon themselves. You try to present yourself as a help, but then they perceive that as some type of attack.
Or encroachment.
Encroachment, correct. And then they exact it on their children. If the mentality happens, if I can't be with you, then my children won't be with you. And if you try to take them away, I'm going to attack what you love the most. You don't love me, you love your children more. So now it becomes an issue of jealousy. And not trying to be cliche here, but you know, the wrath of a black woman is nothing to play with. And when a black woman is extremely jealous, and I can only, kind of talk on our demographic because I don't know about the other demographics, but from what I have seen and what we have read and what we have listened to and experienced personally, the children are the first ones to experience pain. And the logic comes in where you have a man that says, okay, if I keep trying to reach out to get my children, she's going to hurt them. So it would be far better to be a stranger to them than to be a loving father, and then they're abused or hurt.
And that's a hard thing to deal with.
Very hard.
And if you have not said this yourself, you may know somebody who will make this phrase, I can't stand you. You look just like your father. I can't stand you. You act just like your father. You do just like your father. His punk ass. I used to hear things like that, so I know that it's said, but you just really don't know how far it goes. And people tend to think that, men or fathers that stay away from their children means that they don't love them. And not all the time is that the case. And
true.
Sometimes there's certain sacrifices that you tend to make for the best interest. Maybe that father removed himself from that situation based off of what he said, that, by him being around is a constant reminder, to the mother of what they had, and will fuel something in her that caused her to latch out to the children. Now, I would say to that situation logically, then I would get social services involved, right?
Right.
I would say, well, if you're witnessing something like that happening with your children, then you go ahead and get social services involved, or you try to fight for custody. But unfortunately, I also will say this, that if there is no proof, if you cannot prove it, the system is automatically set up for the children to be with the mother. So you have got to find a way to prove this. And the only way to actually prove it is to put the children in danger.
This is the conundrum of a good black man. I'm not talking about the deadbeats that don't give a shit about their children, that just want to, impregnate these women and boost their ego and then leave them with the children. I'm talking about the real good men, unfortunately, who might be with some very unstable women, and they have the potential of losing their children because they want custody.
Now, going into this topic of the shadow self, okay? When we read stories like this, we got to keep in mind that everything that is portrayed, to the world, to others, may not necessarily be the truth, because we like to hide things, especially when we've prided ourselves into being, this very strong and powerful being. Then oftentimes a lot of women do not like to expose the vulnerable side of themselves. There's a side that you might not see or have known about this woman that decided to not only take the lives of her children, but take her own life as well.
That's right.
The black community kind of skates over mental illnesses and issues like that, because I don't think in the Western culture we were really equipped to deal with it. Now, back in our homelands, we had the shamans, and, we had herbalists, and we had things of that nature. We had a different way of counseling, but here it's all about prescription drugs, and it's all about psychiatry and taking people away out of the home and leaving them to be a burden to somebody else. So instead of us wanting to be separated by those that we care about that might be a little cray-cray, we end up just dealing and trying to cover up the cray-cray. Okay? And I'm making light of it. It's not a light topic, but I'm making light of it because it's very heavy, and I want to make sure that I get this stuff out. Postpartum depression and stuff like that, that goes on with women, is sometimes very undetectable. Okay? Because you don't want people to know that you can't handle the situation that you're in.
Indeed.
So you have a persona. You have to put on, a show, especially when it comes down to having a relationship where, you were a teen and you were divorced, and the father is saying, let me have the children because you can't take care of them. Or, then it's almost to that woman as if saying, you're unequipped to handle anything without me. The pride or the ego is not going to let that woman do that at certain times. Okay. There are certain women that are going to be like, hey, take them until I can get on my feet. And when I get on my feet, I want my baby back. Right. Or there's certain women that definitely are strong enough to handle, raising their children by their own, but they still seek help. They seek help from either the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, somebody, because you will really kind of go crazy with having to balance so many different things and no pattern of relief until the children get old enough to be self-sufficient.
That's right.
Okay, but for those who can't do it, but are, putting out there that they can, they're suffering internally from all types of depression and wicked thoughts.
That's right.
Especially when, say, they do find an interest, a love interest, and they want to build some type of relationship with them, but that person don't want to deal with your kids. They don't want to deal with your kids. They only want you. You know what I mean? They only want you, and they're only around to to get with you, and they're tolerating your children for the sake of getting what they need.
What they want.
And then later on, you find out that this is a constant thing. I don't want these kids. These kids are blocking me, from moving ahead in life. These kids have stopped my career, stopped my progress. I can't get a man now. I can't, all of these negative emotions start flooding, and it adds on top of your depression.
It builds and builds into a point where something that could be very small, it becomes cataclysmic.
Right.
And so it looks like we do have some more people that are chiming in on the 99 to Beat chat line. We want to say hello to Mackenzie. Hello to Abigail, Ava, greetings. I think we already said hello to Mia, but hello once again. Lyrical, First Lady of 99 to Beat. Greetings, we're glad you were able to listen in. Thank you for this opportunity. As always, Snoop Dogg in the house.
All right.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for blessing us with your presence. Reagan and Delilah have come in, and Reagan stated that, Navia, you're speaking facts. And Delilah stated that some guys say that when y'all got on your feet, they lie. We're not denying that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think then there also has to be a
everything.
Communication.
Yeah. Look, everything can be finalized through contracts, honey. That's why I deal when it comes down with certain type of things. I deal contractual. On paper.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So if and it's better between parents to handle their own business than put them through a court system.
Agreed, because the court system, and I'll say this from personal experience, the court system is biased and unfair.
Yeah,
extremely biased and unfair. And for everyone that's on 99 to Beat and that's listening on the Chatline Live, we know that the court system can be highly unfair, especially in certain demographics and especially in our demographic as African Americans.
Right. Okay. So we know what you're talking about, Delia. We do know that people do lie. But I would urge anybody that is, going through, even when you're trying to get married, to write down the things that you want and make a contract out of it. When you, when you're going through your separations, just put it on paper, and the system will honor it. And if you get on your feet and a certain time is up, and this person decides they don't want you to have the children, you can fight for them legally. Okay, because
it's been signed and
it's a contract.
And then again, but it also speaks to the maturity of both parties too.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very admirable situation when two people who have irreconcilable differences can actually sit down and say, hey, even though you and I cannot get along, for the benefit of our children, let's work this out. Let's work that out. And then we'll give you children here. We'll give you children there. We will exchange. So that way the children still know both of the parents, and both of the parents still have their sanity.
That's correct. And, but getting back to what I was discussing with this woman, there's things that we keep hidden here that others don't know about until it's too late.
That's correct.
And it seems like you would be able to see some telltale signs of depression, but you, like I said before, you don't all the time do. You don't all the time do that. And sometimes these women just feel completely defeated. They're in a damn if you do and damn if you don't type of situation. It's almost on one hand, if they say, I'm not equipped to handle the situation, to raise these two children by myself. I'm not equipped to handle the mental frustration. I'm not equipped to handle, the physical amount of drain that comes from raising children, because it's difficult.
That's right.
Okay, it's difficult between two people, let alone with one.
One person.
Okay, so it is difficult. But if they say that, they feel like a failure.
And it's not true. Because there's no handbook to parenting. Parenting is not going to be solid 100% all the time. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to treat your children differently. It's just not going to happen. You can't treat all your children equally. They're going to have different preferences. You're going to make mistakes because you didn't know how to take care of your first child. Now that you have a little bit more wisdom, you can do a little bit better with the second child and still try to give that same type of value to the first without them feeling as if they're being neglected and so on and so forth. But then that's what plays into the psychological mindset that you were talking about, because you're trying to be a good mom and you want to make sure you don't make the same mistakes with the first child that you did with the second, that you're doing with the second or possibly the third, and so on and so forth. So now you have that conundrum that you're stuck in. You're trying to please your children, be good to a good parent. You're trying to deal with the social ills. You're trying to deal with all the other stresses around. And then, boom, just a powder keg.
Just a powder keg. So it plays out in something unfortunate. Do I think that, these parents sit around and premeditate this murder? Not all the time. No. I think that sometimes the pressure gets to them and they have in their minds that, this is my way out. This is my way out, and I'm not going to be around to be judged by any decision that I make because I'm gone.
That's right.
And my children, will go on to this afterlife here, and they don't have to worry about the suffering that I put them through, and that's that little martyr thing that some people use to try to justify their act. You don't know what these children will grow up to be like.
That's right.
You have no idea some of the things that I may have experienced growing up in the hood, you know what I mean, and knowing what's out there and seeing death and things of that nature, and just have decided to, okay, I'm going to place myself somewhere else and I'm going to get my crap together and I'm going to move forward. There are children that can become exceptional out of hurt and out of pain.
Correct.
But as a mother, if you're not seeing that, You know, all you're seeing is me and what I can't do and what they're putting me through. And then, damn, you look just like your daddy and I can't stand him. And he left us and he's not taking care of us and you'll never see him again. So I'm just stuck to struggle with these kids all by myself. No, we're all going.
So now how does you know, kind of backtracking and getting onto the topic of what you were saying before, how does the shadow self play or have a pivotal role in that particular mindset?
Okay, so many of you understand that I call myself the disagreeable. But a lot of you never really wondered or understood what that meant. What it means is I have just now started transitioning and accepting my shadow self. For those of us who have grew up in religion, you know, in hardcore religion and morality and ethics and stuff, you are literally taught to shy away from certain things that is a part of making you human. You know, your anger, sadness, depression, you know, these type of things that come along with being a person, a human being. And instead of learning how to balance and admit that you have these darker places of your side, what you end up doing is suppressing them. Mm-hmm. When you start to suppress your darker nature, your shadow self, it comes across you as somewhat passive aggressive. When you are angry, you know, you either start lashing out or you become imbalanced, you know, with your mental thinking, because everything that you're projecting to the world is not the real you. You're hiding someone that hurt you. You haven't dealt with some things that, you know, may have gone on in your past. You've never understood how to express anger in a healthy way without tearing stuff up. Now, when I was young and I was angry, I tore stuff up. Okay, if you know that cartoon called The Tasmanian Devil. Yep. The guy hanging out and he just starts and spins, and after he's done, you know, there's just a tornado, and then you're sitting there panting, and then you feel bad about what you just not right then and there. I probably felt bad a little later on, but not right then and there. Your shadow self is your dark self. Okay, that's the part that you try not to deal with. That's the part of yourself that you don't want the world to see. That's the part of yourself that tries to shy away from confrontation during the time that you may need to be confrontational. That's the part of you that tries to suppress anger and greet everything with a smile when you know that it's a time to promote frustration or express that. That's right. That's the part of you that allows yourself to be bullied, taken advantage of, link up with narcissists because you want to obtain this image that you think is acceptable without dealing with the harsh reality of who you really are. And see, I've come to a place, you know, in my life where I have to face my shadow self, my disagreeable nature, the part of me that I have suppressed either from being hurt or out of fear of what others may think about me. And I have to bring that forward. I have to admit to myself, ooh, you know, you just made me really, really angry. I have to admit myself, I might get frustrated, you know, with certain things, that there's a dark side of me that is not going to let anybody hurt me. You know, that can come forth when it's time that I feel vulnerable and I need to be protected. And I have to bring this side of me forward so that I can address it and then learn how to balance it.
Correct.
Okay? Because if you try to run away from your shadow, what does a shadow do?
Follows you everywhere you go.
And it will start to manifest at a time that you might not be ready for that to happen. Such in a case with people just blowing up and murdering somebody. Okay? Yep. The more balance that you are within and knowing, you know, who you are and having to admit, you know, that this is a part of me that makes me me. Because if I was all loving and caring and open and appreciative, then hell, I'd be the most vulnerable person on this earth and people could do anything to me and I would allow it because I'm trying to put on the image that I'm supposed to. And I'm the good girl. But when the shadow heifer shows up, or my shadow self, comes forward and I accept that, then I can tell you, without a shadow of a doubt that I'm not dealing with you like this, or your foolishness, or your madness.
That's right.
And I'm going to protect myself, my children, and everything that is in my best interest. I am called the disagreeable because I confront things and I'm not caring so much about what people may think of it as I am as getting to the source of the root of things. So I'm not supposed to be, or I'm not going to be liked all the time when I speak. And I'm okay with that.
Now, the key thing that she also said was balance. Okay. It doesn't mean that you go full tilt, 100% disagreeable, messing up everything forever until the end of days. But it's saying that you have to be able to embrace it.
Yeah.
When it is prudent and when it is time. Because there will come a time where you're going to have to embrace that side. And that's actually what I mentioned in the chat room as well. Because there's this quote, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it says, it is far better to be a warrior in the field or a warrior in the garden than a gardener in a war.
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
I think I messed that up, but
I'm sure you
hopefully
did.
Everybody got what it's saying. I'm good at butchering.
Yeah, you are.
That is so profound. But hopefully the message is conveyed to everyone that's paying attention, because I'm sorry.
I mean, that's just what he does, but you get the general message.
The gist is still communicated through me messing up the message. So, but yeah, that is a really poignant thing that you have addressed, and I think everybody.
And your other quote. I need your other quote. Remember now, because that hits along with it too. Show me a man that has no enemies,
and I'll show you a person who hasn't been through shit. I remember that one.
Has never stood for shit.
Yeah, there you go. See, I butchered it again.
Okay.
All right. Yep.
So yeah, that's what I mean by the shadow self. That's what we're going to deal with the shadow self. It's a way of dealing with those things, bringing it to the forefront so that you can either heal from them or learn to balance it when it's needed. But it still has to be addressed and dealt with in one way or another.
Correct.
They say that it is through your darkest times that you actually find your light. Well, if you apply that principle to the shadow self is what's going to reveal the real you.
Say that again.
It's your shadow self that's going to reveal the real you. It's the things that you're hiding or that you're afraid to confront that is going to take you to the next level. Okay? So the more we can get people to just be honest, okay, the more that you can get people to not care so much about what others may think of them or what society is going to think, and embrace their shortcomings, their fears, their anxieties, those places that you go bump in the night, that you're running from because you think that if you show it or express it, you're some kind of way a bad person. You're going to continue to be that person.
That's right. Until
you bring it to the forefront and say, this is what I've dealt with as a child. This is what manifests with me as a young adult. These are the areas that make me angry. These are the areas that causes envying or jealousy within me. And I need to know how I got here so that I can know when I need to pull from it or pull back,
Correct.
What I need to suppress or disseminate versus what I need to build to make stronger in myself. And I think that if we can all deal with the honesty and being genuine, with ourselves, then we would know that we really don't have anything to prove. And we will deal with the things that we can deal with and let go of the things that we can't deal with, and nobody gets hurt.
Correct. The key is it's about the harmony. You see, and the thing is, most people don't realize that the shadow self is actually what instills discipline.
Yeah.
You can't just be the happy-go-lucky, parent that always hold the children's hand. No, sometimes you have to be stern. You have to be very stern. You have to be firm on what you're saying. You have to be aggressive in certain instances, not to say, you're overpowering and intimidating the child to a point of so much fear that they're incapable of doing anything, or they're just catatonic, but stern in saying, I am the authority over you at this point in time for your own safety.
Right.
For your protection. Don't do this, don't do that. That's where the shadow self actually comes in and is helpful, because no one wants to, spank a child, but if they're bad, they have to learn that unfortunately certain consequences bring about pain. I know it's funny, but it's true. Certain consequences bring about pain. There are parents out there that say, well, I don't spank my children. It's symbolic of slavery. Well, unless you are whipping unless your child is strapped to a tree and you're whipping them, that's not slavery. Unless you are, punching, your child, that is slavery, that is abuse. But discipline, I always say discipline is open-handed, because once you have, gently tapped the child on the behind or pinched the skin, you're still there saying, hey, now that you've learned, I'm still here. I'm still available. And you can get angry at me. You can get angry at daddy. You can get angry at mommy. But I had to show you what happens when some bad decisions are made. Period.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I wasn't laughing. It was the delivery. Just kind of, you just caught me off guard with that one there. That's all.
But
it brings about pain.
But it does, you're like, hey, don't touch that. The stove is hot, and then all of a sudden you touch the stove. Now you have a 1st-degree burn on your hand. You're running around crying.
Yeah.
And then you as a parent treat the burn. Okay, say, all right, what have you learned? It burns. Bow. Don't do it again.
What have we learned? Right. Yeah. The what have we learned factor.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's key.
Okay.
So yes, the shadow self is integral, because you can't you can't be a light body all the time. Mm-hmm. And here's the interesting conundrum that I'm going to present to you all. If you are a light body all the time, how can people see the real you? Go ahead, ponder on that one. If you are a light body all the time, how can people see the real you? Think of it as trying to look directly into the sun. You can't look directly into the sun. It gives off too much light and radiance. So you can't really understand the fact that the sun is a star and not some bright light that is blaring down on you. So if you're an individual that's happy-go-lucky all the time and you're just irradiating love, peace, and hair grease, no one's going to see the real you until you've been angry, until you've been sad, until you've been in despair, until you have actually come up out of that particular realm of darkness,
right, and
learned how to harmoniously live between the two. Mm-hmm. So that's just like how nature exists. There's a sun and the moon. There's a lesser light, then there's a greater light.
Right.
So you also have
the yin and the yang.
Correct. You have to be able to show people who that shadow self is.
Show yourself first, because some of you are hiding from it.
Correct.
Some of you are hiding from it.
Some of you all
you're hiding from your dark places.
To take some of you guys need to take, about 5 black candles, go into the bathroom and scream Bloody Mary. Ooh. No. Okay. No. But in all honesty, some of you all, okay, that was a very poor delivery. But some of you all need to actually look at yourselves in the mirror and acknowledge that there are some inner workings that you have failed to address and embrace. They have to be embraced. The key word is embrace or engage, because when you embrace or engage it, there's an action that takes place. You can't just say, oh, it's there. I have a shadow self.
And incidentally, the universe is going to cause you to face it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're a person that is very, very passive, and you have a lot of aggression built up inside of you, but you're very, very passive about it, and you're used to being mistreated or bullied or the doormat or something like that, you're going to continue to be in that space, okay? Because the universe is trying to get you to stand up for yourself and to face that. So that's why, you've heard stories where it's somebody that has a particular issue and they never escape it for the rest of their life. It's like they're constantly in a hamster wheel. You was teased when you was a kid. You're a nerd when you get older. The girls don't like you. And this just progresses for the rest of your life because you have not learned the lesson yet, and you're still, as an adult, might be going to the job, and people are still laughing at you, pulling your chairs up from underneath you, flirting with your girl in front of your face, little stuff like that is that's constantly showing you that you need to go ahead and learn how to defend yourself, to stand up for yourself, strengthen your inner self. If you're a person that suppress anger, you're going to constantly be faced with people that make you mad, that are doing something to you to evoke that type of anger because you've never released it. So what's going to happen is you're going to find yourself down that type of pattern too. You come home, your children messing with you, the house is dinner, your girlfriend or your wife got an attitude. Your boss call you complaining about something they get done. All of those types of things will kind of keep snowballing until you address that.
You actually do something. And unfortunately, what happens is if it's not addressed in time, then that's when the avalanche happens and you have instances like what we've just read.
Well, where you find yourself doing something that you never thought you were capable of doing. Okay. Yep. And that's all we have to say. Well, that's all I have to say for this about diet. And and I hope you guys are listening because some of these things are important, and people who are suffering through these things silently.
Indeed.
And maybe you might be suffering through some of these things silently. And we're just here to tell you that it's okay to acknowledge it.
Indeed.
And it's okay to reach out to people for help.
I mean, good, bad, or indifferent, Beloved and I are here for you. We're not world-renowned psychologists. We're just individuals that know how to listen and know how to talk to people and kind of help them along.
Not perfect. We're not perfect.
Far from perfect. We could probably give you some of the worst advice you could ever get. But we're still there to listen. We're still there to listen.
Jesus Christ.
You told us to do this, but did it work? No, it didn't work. I'm in a worse situation. Yeah.
You wanna go to dinner? Get something to eat or something?
Something to eat. Maybe a
karaoke.
Yeah. Maybe go shoot some hoops or something.
Sorry.
No, I was kicked out of my house. But you see, my couch has too much clothes on it, so I can't let you stay over here.
He's just
yeah.
You should go and try to work that out.
Yeah, work that out. But you told me not to. No, I suggested that you not work it out, but you have to have a backup plan. You didn't hear me say backup plan, right? So technically it's your fault for not listening to everything that I said.
And it doesn't mean you have to work it out over here.
Over here,
us. I mean, how's that
supposed to work? You do have family other than us.
But anyway,
let me give some shout outs to the individuals that said, hey, they did give us a listen for at least a few minutes. The game was in the room. Greetings. Thank you for listening. Zoe, thank you for listening. Frankie, hey yo, Frankie.
Frankie.
A
gabagoo.
Gabagoo. Frankie's probably your brother. That's terrible. That was we were terrible for that one. Right.
A little bit racist.
A little bit racist. Just a tad. I'm not racist. Vicky, greetings. We thank you. Delilah, thank you again. Reagan, thank you for visiting and stopping through and listening. Snoop Dogg, we thank you again. Sister Lyrical, the godmother of 99 The Beat, we thank you. Mackenzie, we thank you. Abigail, thank you. Emily, thank you. Mia, thank you.
Thank you.
Ava, thank you. Sophia, you told Harpo to beat me. We thank you. Nikki, thank you. Emma, we thank you. Tiffany, thank you for stopping by.
You got Ava.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ava.
Ava.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, Ava. Let's see. Okay, that was before we tuned in. And Harper. No, it's not Harpo. It's Harper. All right, so we can't play on that one. Tiffany, we thank you. Guys, thank you once again. We are very grateful for this opportunity to be on 99 to Beat and start TKNN Live, the No News Network. Yeah. Again, if you need us, we're here for you. Hit us up in the chat room. We'll try to leave our email addresses. Talk to us. Again, if you guys have any issues or you might need some
this is a long outro, beloved. Yeah. Let's just go.
It is, but, they still need to know who we are. Just, So we're just going to go Dion Cole, right?
I've been waving by for like the last 5 minutes.
You do have to say, thank you. Just got to be, show that we're grateful.
We are grateful, guys. We love you. Thank you very much.
Grateful. All right. Well, okay. I guess that.
Lights on, got money in my pocket, and ooh, I'm a brother.
Thank you, brother.
I know I'm a brother.
Where were you out here doing those protests and riots?
It's all on TV.
You call yourself a revolutionary, not standing strong?
Nope, been working for men.
I love this
And I
song.
know that I am the man, and that's why you're with me.
You're kind of muddy and orange.
You know what, y'all here? You just
Too late.
You talk real proper.
Yep.
Got all that education.
You know.
And you even into politics.
Oh, don't skip.
I bet you don't even go to church.
What for?
And you know what else? You got real big feet.
My feet? What are you goofy? Ooh,